Breakfast this morning was... I don't even know if I had breakfast this morning. I had a delicious coffee out here at the Aotea Centre.
I just wanted to ask about the genesis of the play. Obviously it's interesting in that the stage is only so big. I was wondering whether the idea for throwing something on that smaller sort of space came first, or whether the theme for the whole thing came first. How did it come about?
I think that the theme for the writing came first, but it coincided with my wife, who directed the show, teaches. She was a student of Jacques Lecoq, the teacher in Paris, and one of the exercises that they did was something called tréteau, where you pile a whole bunch of actors on this riser, like maybe a 1x2 riser, and you have them do an epic story. So we were interested in condensing that, seeing how that could apply to a solo show, making the stage even smaller, and seeing what kind of storytelling language it demanded.
Right, and what kind of storytelling language did it demand?
Well, it actually ends up being very filmic, because what you do in that really constrained space is you tell a story in whatever way. So the play starts off with there's basically a wide shot of a guy walking, and it's mysterious, and it's very naive and theatrical, but at the same time the sensibility is filmic, because it goes wide shot to medium shot, and then the way that I edit the writing and snap from scene to scene, it takes on kind of a very filmic language.
And I think when you've got that focus on detail because of the smaller space, it demands an attention to the details of the characters that you construct, the details of all the moments in a different way. You think about little gestures as being really key to who the people are. It can be somebody who does this as a habit. You just become aware of their little habits because it's close up.
Yeah.
And I can go all the way upstage to all the way downstage in a single step. But we used to joke about, but it's not just a joke, it's true. There's a huge difference between being downstage and being upstage. It's just you're painting on a much smaller canvas.
Yeah, it's interesting that the restrictions don't really seem to restrict the scope of it at all.
It enables it, actually.
Yeah.
I think, I'm interested in that kind of constraint-based creation.
Well, it's because the audience goes, a hand walking.
Yeah.
I'm just going to use my shadow on the front. A hand walking. Oh, that's kind of cool. Hand walking.
It's the beginning of another play right there.
That's right here, dudes. Let's go. So hand walking, for example, just suddenly expands because the audience knows that the restraint is there, but they are given the context.
Yeah,
to
expand. And the imagination opens up. We talk about in our work, providing really good invitations for the imagination. Because I think actually the audience, the play isn't. My pet theory is that the play doesn't really happen on stage. It happens in the audience's mind, and everything that we do on stage is only to catalyze that imaginative and chemical process in their brains. So you do something like this, and as long as people buy into it, which there's no reason not to, they go, oh, cool, fingers can be a guy,
I think the lighting design helps.
Yeah.
I noticed that initially when it starts off that you're lit very low light. I don't know the technical terms, but you're lit very low. There's a sort of luminosity about you just existing in this black space.
Yeah.
And so I found my eyes were doing some weird stuff as well.
Yeah.
I thought the light goes out, and then so you're sort of already in a way kind of locked into this is a strange space where this is all happening, which is where it is happening.
Yeah.
Finds it in play. Christian, the sound design. Do you want to explain what a sound designer does for the theatre?
Well, I guess I didn't train as a sound designer. I'm a director by vocation, so I can only tell you what I do.
Please.
Which is I sit around in the rehearsal hall and try and play along. And you know, we're talking about the small stage kind of enabling the imagination. In a way, I just try and sit there and imagine what sounds will draw the imagination of the audience deeper into the story. I try and think of simple little ways to invite the audience to imagine a complete scene just by giving them a key sound or a key texture, or just little ways to draw them deeper into the story. So my approach, I guess, is to just be in the room, be watching the storytelling happening, be watching the creation happening, and then responding to it and trying to bring something that'll deepen the audience's experience.
Do you think you're in this case that the sound design is augmenting the performance, or is that the right way to think about it?
Well, I guess so. I mean, I think what's really nice about this piece, and one of the things that we really enjoy about it, is that everything moves as one muscle. The lights and the sound and the performer are all kind of moving together, and so we're all supporting each other, and so it doesn't really feel like a separate thing in a way. Looking back, I can probably tell you how each moment came about, but I don't really think about that anymore. It all feels like part of an organic way of telling a story now, that the lights shift with this sound cue, which also coincides with the way that this character moves into the scene. We were all sort of trying to play off of each other to create a more organic whole.
Yeah, I think that's right. It does seem like a very slick show. So what did it take to get it to that level of tightness, if you like? A lot of rehearsals, obviously.
A lot of rehearsals and a lot of performances. I mean, that was performance 112 or something. Right. So, just the repeating things, and I don't know. We tried to pay very close attention to detail, because that's the details are magnified, like Chris was saying. The details on that stage are super magnified. So it's just drilling bits and working out. Okay, when do we want to ash the cigarette, or when do we want to do whatever telling gesture?
Right. I guess the subject of the play is quite, shall we say, current. Did it happen all at the same time? You look at your TV, your news, the TV news, and sort of go, oh, I need to write about this, or did it sort of happen at the same time?
It's funny, because I just, I was looking on Facebook, somebody posted this thing about, is the perpetual growth myth, well, it was an article about the perpetual growth myth, and that it was ultimately harmful, and I was like, wow, that's really the play. But I wrote this play in 2004. That was the first draft, and so I think that if you write a play that forecasts a feeling of doom and gloom, you'll probably get it right, because people always feel like the world is worse than it ever has been. But it's been interesting with all the credit collapse and all the worldwide economic stuff, that audience, I think, now are much more attuned to economic terminology and how it plays in market forces and all that stuff in a way that I'm not sure that they were the same way in 2004.
Well, and it's kind of a universal thing, I think. Like, a lot of people that I know anyway worry a lot about how to make a living, but also how to not harm the world. And in a way, that's what this character is struggling with, is trying to figure out some way to make a good living, make a good life, but not be a part of the problem. And I think a lot of people think about that. So I think it's a pretty universal piece in that way. Everybody has access to that question of how to live.